You found it. Your home for the best content on your favorite team, the Fighting Tigers of LSU. Do us a favor, subscribe to the channel, leave your comments below, and be sure to smash that like button. You've probably seen by now that Greg Brooks Jr. and Sr. were a guest on The Pivot. Pivot, of course, is a podcast with Ryan Clark, Fred Taylor, Channing Crowder. But there's sort of a new arm of that they called Pivotal Conversations with RC. And so in this instance, it was just Ryan sitting down with Greg Brooks Jr. and Sr. And some more context that you may want to know is both Ryan and Greg Sr. Grew up together in New Orleans, played football together in high school. And so that families had a relationship for a long time. RC coached Greg Brooks Jr. with the Bootleggers. So there was a deep family relationship there for a long time. And so the way that this was structured, and the interview ran about an hour. First, Ryan and Greg Jr. spoke for about 15 minutes. Then Sr. came in. It was the three of them for a time. And then Greg Jr. left, and it was RC and Greg Sr. for the balance of the interview. And I would encourage anybody to go watch the whole thing. I think watching it rather than listening to it is probably going to be better because there's a lot of emotional moments, and seeing the emotion is helpful. Also, very candidly, Greg Jr., because of the complications from the surgeries, we know is still having speech impairment. So watching it and looking at his mouth, I think will help understand some of the words he says that sometimes if you're just listening may be difficult. But the big takeaways from this for me were two. Number one, Greg Jr. Being very upbeat. He said, football-wise, I'm happy because all my friends, my teammates, everybody, they're living their dream for me. I'm completely fine with it, meaning not playing football anymore. The mindset, he said, quote, my goals are to get better every single day. Do not lose faith, have sight on the future, do not lose hope, just keep on fighting no matter how hard it gets. There's a lot of very inspiring, uplifting messages in that conversation. That's one takeaway. The other takeaway is how angry Greg Sr. still is about the whole thing. And as a father, as a parent, I can empathize. Not sympathize, empathize. Like I'm sure there are plenty of you who have, I, as a dad, lived the hospital life for 9 months. I looked at my son in a hospital bed every day for 9 months. A lot of you have been through similar. So I can empathize there with feeling like your life stopped and the rest of the world kept going. And it's easy to feel like the world forgot about you. And I think that's a lot of what Greg Sr. is feeling and expresses in this interview. And he did, again, restate, and in this interview, forcefully, his criticisms of Brian Kelly. Remember back in February when he was on Good Morning America, that's when he first made his public comments about Brian Kelly. Do you have it or no?
You say you haven't heard from anybody from the LSU coaching staff since October of 2023.
Specifically, Brian Kelly. My son almost lost his life, Coach. Where were you? Forget about football. Pick up the phone and say you love the kid, man.
That was very emotional, very jarring, that I know a lot of people heard at the time. Brian Kelly very forcefully came back and denied that allegation.
It is factually incorrect to state that I was not there by Greg's side through this ordeal. I was there on multiple occasions. We had somebody from my staff that was there virtually every single day. We love Greg. We love him for the person that he is, for the competitor that he is, and the battler that he is, and can only wish him continued progress as he goes through an incredibly difficult time.
Well, so that was Brian Kelly, again, back in February after the initial allegation. On the pivot, Greg Sr. reiterated that they've not heard from Brian Kelly.
Man, you don't think that kid suffer, man? You don't think this hurt him to see all his friends' success? You know, to not hear from your head coach in over 17 fucking months. 17 months. That's hurtful, man. We played the game. We understand like what happens inside those buildings. You know, that kid's suffering, man. Yeah. On the outside, he look good. He's strong, man.
Look, a lot of this with the lawsuit that's been filed is going to be litigated. And I don't have the facts. Neither do you. We only know what little the two sides have said up to this point. And if it goes to trial, facts will come out. There'll be evidence and all that can be considered. Ryan Clark had a very difficult job, and I thought he handled this in a beautiful way because he's a guy who has a very strong familial connection with the Brookses. He also loves LSU, and there were times he had to push back because there was a moment in this interview, as Greg Sr. was saying, Brian Kelly never contacted us. Ryan says, no, Greg, there was a day where I was there at the hospital with Brian Kelly and Frank Wilson. So Ryan Clark is saying, I saw him. We were there together. And then Greg Sr. kind of went into a little bit of the timeline there.
I think Brian Kelly maybe came to the hospital 4 times. 4 times, RC. I think Greg had surgery on Friday. They say he had the tumor on Thursday. They found out Friday he had surgery. Brian Kelly didn't come see Greg till Sunday. Unacceptable. You should have been the first person that called that kid and told him you love him. Unacceptable, RC. So you come Sunday. I don't see you again till Thursday.
It is so impossible of a circumstance because I empathize with Greg Sr., but I also understand Kelly's perspective. And even Ryan Clark at that point in the interview says, well, what about all the other players on the team that Brian Kelly is responsible for? He's running a giant football program, which is true. So on one hand, it's factually inaccurate to say that Brian Kelly was never there. He was there at least 4 times. Think about the sequence of events. Greg's diagnosed on a Thursday. He has surgery Friday. It's the day before a football game. And Brian Kelly's running this football program. And I understand Greg Brooks' life means more than a football game. I do. Play the game Saturdays at the hospital Sunday. I'm not excusing it because I am empathetic toward Greg Sr. Yo, listen, I promise you I'm not trying to make this about me because it's not. I happen to have a life experience, and some of you have had a life experience similar as well that can provide some color and context that I can share. I know. My son's almost 11 years old now. We lived in a hospital for 9 months. He had 3 surgeries in his first 5 days of life. He's had 8 surgeries so far. He had 2 open heart surgeries within 2 weeks of each other. Every day was a living hell. And you better believe I know who came to see my family. I'll never forget it. When you're in your worst moment, regardless of what it is, whatever you've gone through in your life that's your worst moment, you know who was there for you. So I can empathize with Greg Brooks Sr. Because when you're sitting in the hospital and life's going on and you're seeing people do other things, it's like, man, they forgot about me. They forgot about my family. They forgot about my son who's fighting for his life every day. The other part of it is people do have to have life go on. It's an impossible balance where Brian Kelly probably does feel like he and his staff did enough. And the Brooks family, no doubt, feel like they didn't. As far as the lawsuit, I have no idea what's going to happen there. What's alleged is that LSU didn't follow proper protocols and there were mistakes made in surgery. And again, the delay diagnosis isn't what caused Greg's current state. It was complications due to the surgery. I mean, that's been made public record now because of the lawsuit. And I don't know what's going to happen there. I want to be clear again. Like, I don't know, and I'm not trying to opine there. I have no business giving an opinion on a lawsuit or any of that stuff. But I'll say today, after watching this interview, the same thing I have said every step of this. When the Brookses first went on Good Morning America, when Brian Kelly responded in his press conference, when a day later, when the Brooks attorney made a public statement clapping back at Brian Kelly, now with this pivot interview, I'm going to say the same thing I've said every time. The only thing that matters is that Greg Brooks Jr. gets every single resource humanly possible available to him for the rest of his life so that he can live the rest of his life at the highest quality possible, whatever that looks like. And that is LSU's responsibility. That is his family's responsibility. And when I say LSU, I mean all-encompassing. The university, the athletic department, all of it. I'm not going to say I don't care what happens with the lawsuit. The lawsuit is what it is, and that'll happen and go whatever. But the adults, I would like to see them stop the public war of words and come together to benefit, for the benefit of Greg Brooks Jr., because that's really what this is about. I can empathize with a parent aching for their child. Believe me, I can empathize. Can also understand someone feeling like they've done enough and what more can they do, in a degree of helplessness while they have to continue on with their life. I understand that as well. But none of that matters as much as getting Greg Brooks every bit of opportunity to be the best version of himself he can be, whatever that looks like. And I hope, by the way, if you do go watch the interview, and I hope you do, the very end of it is Ryan Clark effectively imploring Greg Sr., his friend, that. And I hope that's where this goes. I hope that LSU does right by Greg Brooks and his family. Not because they're legally obligated because of a lawsuit, but because it is the right thing to do. And because you have the resources to do it. Do right by that young man and get him every bit of help he needs. And maybe they are. We don't know it. I don't know. Maybe they are. Maybe that'll come out publicly in time. But in all of this, the one certainty that every single one of us can agree on, like that is inarguable, is that everybody should come together to give Greg Brooks Jr. every resource he needs to be the best version of himself. And I'll continue to say that any and every time we have this conversation. Hey, thanks so much for watching. Please leave your comments. I love to interact. And be sure to hit the red subscribe button below.